Hello, I'm Mantastic and Fantastic, and today I'm going to be talking about the Dragonbound Dragoncaller event that has come to North America once again. So, the Dragonbound Dragoncaller, or DBDC, is one of the highest value rare machines in the game because it offers us incredible value at the lowest rarity. Whenever you roll in any sort of event, you, at least from my opinion, I always try and take a look at what is the most common role to acquire, and if it is something that is of value, or at least many of them are of value, it makes it much easier to justify rolling in, because if you are disappointed with the bottom rarity, you might get something of value. With that in mind, if you have never rolled in this event whatsoever, I strongly encourage you to do so, because it will give you access to cards that are very difficult or impossible to replicate elsewhere. With that being said, if you're like myself and have been playing for quite some period of time, there's a strong likelihood that you've seen every single one of these events come through, and unfortunately Gung Ho is not really buffing or helping improve the lower rarities or more common cards. They're just kind of bumping up the top rarity cards, which can be a little frustrating. So again, if you have not participated in this event before, I would encourage rolling for at least several of the 5-star cards, because they offer multiple killers, which are quite invaluable. But then again, if you're like myself, probably holding off, because it's unlikely you'll get something that is new at least, and it's not necessarily worth chasing certain cards when it's at 10 magic stones each, unless you obviously have copious amounts. Without further ado, I want to dive into each and every single one of the cards. So, because this is a 10-stone event, the 7-star or top rarity cards will have significantly higher trading costs compared to 5-stone events. They will require 5, not 4 fodder, along with each of the fodder being 7-star Godfest exclusive or 7 stars from this event. So, Gung Ho has introduced 3 new cards, 2 of them being 7 stars. So the first one is Levin. So both base and evolve forms, like any of the cards in this event, share the same active skill, and they are able to reduce your health to 1. So setting your health to 1 sets up certain compositions, but you have 2 turns of damage absorption and color absorption void. So you combine basically reach style voids together on a 20 turn, not a 30 turn cooldown, so it's much easier to manage. So this can definitely be much easier to inherit around on various teams, because it also lasts for 2 turns. So in Arena 5, if you kill a Machine Athena, you transition into Durga, and then you still have the damage absorb void active. Now, for base Levin's form, they give 4 times health for fire attribute cards with dual leaders, and then 576 times attack when you are below 50% health and you match 3 or more colors. Furthermore, you'll gain 1 bonus combo or 2 with dual leaders. So this dual clause activation works in their favor, because you still have 144 times attack, so 12 times 12, when below 50% health. And surprise, surprise, like all Dragonbound Dragoncaller cards, many of the cards such as Levin have very few but very specialized awakenings. So with 4 attack while below 50% awakenings, 5 if you inherit something like Sagat's Eye Patch, you now have 16 or 32 times personal damage, and even with just only 144 times multiplier, you're going to be killing lots of content, especially with both leaders. Furthermore, you only have to make a single combo, 1 combo, and that will actually do the trick. Obviously, you combo more, you can do things more easily, you can tap into the bonus combo count, but it's not necessarily mandatory for certain floors. Of course, when you're trying to burst, it is necessary, and that can be a little bit awkward, because to fully capitalize on their leader skill and full potential, you have to balance your health and your colors, so your board changers, orb changers, as well as what colors and orbs you match on the board. Furthermore, they come with basically no other awakenings outside of damage. They have full bind immunity, which should be there, and then they just have tons of damage. Their super awakenings can give you the skill boost, which you may be lacking, or some time extend. TPA should not really be needed. But basically the general gist is they can form a very powerful and fast and efficient leader, but it requires a lot of fine balancing, which might be a bit too much juggling if you're looking for something more brain dead. Conversely, their Evolve form shares the same active skill, but they swap out the attack while below for TPAs. So with 5 TPAs through Super Awakenings and relatively high base attack, they can deal pretty spectacular amounts of damage. And their leader skill is actually powerful as well. They give 1.5 times stats to all dark cards, so 2.25 times health and recovery, along with up to 576 times attack when you match 4 or more connected fire, water, and dark. So you get that plus combos. So even though you're matching blobs of 4 or more, you are able to actually have a high enough combo count to overcome combo shields. This is quite interesting, and you do trigger off of things like void damage penetration or rose if that's your jam, but TPA probably is the most efficient, along with the fact that that synergizes with their awakenings. So the main idea is, if you want this form here, you have a leader skill that still needs to match Rainbow Claws, but it's a bit more restricted because you only have 3 specific types, but you are able to deal spectacular amounts of damage, and both Levin forms are powerful, especially in higher level content where you need to do lots of damage. For instance, Training Arena 2, they can both perform quite well because their activation is not terribly hard, it is doable, and there's no real mechanics to worry about. It's just hit as hard as you can. Next, brand new card is Hiren. So both Hirens share the same very powerful defensive active skill. They recover all of your health, remove all awoken skill binds, and then reduce all damage taken by 100%. So basically for one turn, you basically have a giant get out of jail free card. Definitely helpful. Unfortunately, the base form is significantly weaker. Like, I really wouldn't even really pay much attention to it because they have lots of fire rows. Cool. Their leader skill wants you to match 6 or more connected fire and water, so it's very orb hungry. It's just not a feasible thing overall, and their evolve form is just so much better. Let's just keep scrolling down. So, Evolved Hiren, same active skill for your Get Out of Jail Free card, but they have the highest VDP potential from any card. They have 3 or 4 VDPs with Super Awakenings, which means they have 39 times personal damage against any spawn when matching that 3x3 box. That is truly outrageous, and like all 7-star cards in the Dragonbound Dragoncaller event, they have very high weighted stats with a particular emphasis on RCV. With this much RCV, you can solve healing issues on lots of wide variety of teams. Furthermore, Hiren can perform beautifully on things like Beach Vero or Beach Barbara and Julie teams. Beach Vero wants to match 9 connected water orbs, so that VDP is actually just going to be dealing spectacular amounts of damage. Again, this is also the highest VDP damage card available, so Beach Barbara and Julie, who sometimes has a difficult time finding VDP options, definitely can take advantage of Hiren. Furthermore, the active skill is basically, like I said, a get out of jail free card. You have problems, most of them are taken away or solved. Definitely helps. Unfortunately, they lack diverse awakenings. They're really just a gigantic VDP stick, which again might be what you're actually looking for. And on Vero teams, it can help solve the healing issue because they don't have any RCV multiplier otherwise. Next, we come to Ideal, and Ideal used to be the ideal card to roll from this event, but sadly, in my opinion, she's just lost a lot of ground over time. Like, she is still phenomenally powerful, but the thing is, she has so much more competition from heavily power crept cards that it's becoming harder and harder to keep abreast. She still features the massive weighted stats and RCV, along with team health, and she does have 777 combo, but I guess you could say she gets tapers as well, or attack while above, but again, she doesn't offer anything like VDP or follow-up attack. She only has 1 skill boost, and her active skill has a lengthy 13-turn cooldown, which is difficult to work around with because the active itself is not necessarily helpful. Well, it is reasonable, but for 13 turns, you probably want something a bit more zesty. Yes, it's good for rainbow-based teams, but if your team is not rainbow-based, you want something that could charge up faster and have at least a bit more synergy. Having a full board of all 5 colors plus hearts does not give you much leeway for even making a follow-up attack, let alone a VDP. So that is definitely a drawback in my opinion. As a leader, we don't look at it. They're just a very powerful stat-heavy sub, which will definitely inflate your health and your RCV along with damage output. But again, we do have other 777 combo cards. They may not necessarily have as high weighted stats, but something like Bridezilla is better in most situations. And the main issue is she lacks kind of the spicier or sexier awakenings because teams nowadays, or at least subs, face so much competition of how you slot them in. They have to all bring something relevant and valuable to the table. It's not to say that Ideal is bad, it's just that she is becoming outclassed and it's becoming harder and harder without any additional love. In terms of her dark form can look nice on paper with 400 times attack and team RCV and team health, but the thing is, it does not offer enough defensive multipliers. It needs 12 or more combos for your full multiplier, which is not realistic. You're going to have 7 or 8 on a given board, so this is not necessarily reliable. And I feel like just Dark Ideal will be a transitional leader until you acquire something stronger. Feel free to make her if your account is newer and you're struggling to find a good leader, because she does come with built-in movement time and reasonable amounts of durability, but she will definitely fall off quite quickly. Next is Ladjoa, and both forms feature a Dark Yogg board. And by that, I mean they create a board of hearts and Dark Orbs, along with a 40% health heal and 4-turn bind recovery. For the most part, this is a powerful active skill and is the main reason why people want to roll them. Because we've seen the power of super follow-up attack plus VDP. Basically, the idea is you use a bicolor board of hearts, you match 2 boxes, and then you just combo upward. With Zeelas, it becomes much easier because you get built-in combo count. With Ladjoa, you don't get the combo count, so assuming your team does not need to have a certain number of combos to succeed, this can definitely be an option for you. Now, the problem is their awakenings may not necessarily synergize with any team you're using because it's mostly Dark Rose or more Dark Rose. It's really you either get follow-up attack or VDP. It's just a little problematic. You might want to inherit them, but the problem is it just doesn't have as much fit as a sub, which can be problematic, and you have to try and figure out, can you justify inheriting something for a 13-turn cooldown? You may or may not be able to do so, but in the situations where it does prove valuable, it can help. One thing that I've noticed is Ladjoa, or these types of board changes, are used in ranking dungeons for style points. You make the VDP super follow-up attack, you get your damage, you get your style points, something to keep in mind. Now, as a leader, their base form does have 4 times health, but they must rely on matching 5 to 10 Dark Orbs. So this is Orb Hungry, and your multiplier scales upwards, so it won't be dealing that much damage. It can work. You have Kuroyuri loop, you have air to heal, but the thing is, it's going to be slow and a little cumbersome. You may not necessarily want to bring this leader if you're not necessarily a patient individual. It can clear content, it's just going to take a longer period of time. And with their evolve form, they're basically just a swipe farming leader. They need 30 orbs for their maximum multiplier. With only 6 Dark Orbs, they have 36 times attack. That is nothing. And then I guess you do have damage reduction when above 50%, when above 80% health, but again, this is not a practical thing. I guess you have lots of Dark Orb generators or lots of Satan-style active skills, you can kind of swipe your way through, but we have things like Amun, who's just a more consistent swipe leader overall. Next, we come to SOooo, and SOooo used to wear the crown of a very interesting and bizarre card, in my opinion, because they kind of broke the rules, so to speak, when they first came out. Base SOooo has 4 7-combo awakenings, which is unheard of, and I don't like. Maybe there's another 4/7 combo card, maybe there's not. It's just a really bizarre thing. The fact that you have 16 times personal damage against any spawn as long as you combo. Very powerful damage stick. Of course, they lack other awakenings. They're not naturally bind immune. They don't have skill bind resist. They're sacrificing so much for raw damage. And the thing is, raw damage is definitely nice, but without the VDP, you can't pierce through anyways. And those are the spawns you tend to need to push through very hard. And speaking of VDP, their Evolve form has 3 VDPs and 3 skill boosts. So remember, Hiren had 4 with Super Awakenings. SOooo has 3 without Super Awakenings, but they come with 3 skill boosts as well as the same bind immunity. But they also gain Super Awakenings of either follow-up attack, cloud, or attack well above 80%, which can add some damage. Not as strong of a VDP option, but they're much more well-rounded. They also come with a very synergistic active skill for Beach Barber and Julie teams, or even Beach Vero. Their active skill creates a board of fire, water, and hard orbs, as well as +1 combo count. So it makes it easier to follow attack and VDP. Maybe if you have enough hearts and your primary color, you could super follow attack and VDP. But the point is, you have options. You could even just heal and deal damage. It's just a useful active skill all around. And for the most part, I would pursue this form because it's just more well-rounded compared to the 4/7 combo awakening. Maybe if you're really hungering for that damage stick, go for the base form, but I would lean more heavily towards the VDP form because it's so powerful. Next is Roach. And Roach, again, embodies the Dragonbound Dragon Caller theme of very few types of awakenings, but a lot of a certain kind, because she has 6 or 7 TPAs with her super awakenings, and actually has incredibly high base attack. They are just by far the strongest TPA option card in the game. Like, nothing really comes close, but again, that's all you really can do, which may be a little problematic, along with the fact that Wood does have very strong sub options already. Things like Zila, who brings so much more variety and usefulness to the table. Roach only is a big damage stick in her base form. It is cool, but it may not necessarily be what you want. In terms of Roach's active skills, they both have color, attribute, absorb, void, and changing fire to and jammer to wood, water, poison to dark. So a orb changer that generates wood and dark orbs along with removing hazards. Reasonable, but the thing is that what you need for your particular team? Yes or no, it depends. But I feel like color, attribute, absorb is pretty niche overall, and I really want to inherit Roach. If I'm going to use Roach's abilities, I want them to actually be as a sub or leader because of their awakenings. Moving on to their evolve form, which I feel is stronger outside of obviously being the best TPA option. They have the ability to gain 4 attack while below 50% awakenings, which means she has 16 times personal damage. She also has follow-up attack, so nice utility. She also has some skill boosts. Again, helpful overall. But the thing is, their leader skill is quite powerful as well. They have wood and dark attribute cards gain bonus damage. You have bonus orb movement time, and then you get damage reduction when hitting 8 or more combos. So, in theory, if you can't hit 8 or more combos, you deal spectacular amounts of damage. But the thing is, maybe you need a pair of a 7x6 leader. I know Diablos was a popular pairing. It can work out, but it's mostly for her sub value in this form that truly makes her shine. You have to remember, with 16 times personal damage, that is hefty because that's against any type of spawn. So if you're on a dark-based team that doesn't necessarily care about combos, and you could one combo your way through content, such as using Evolved Vero from the Rare Machine, the Godfist exclusive, not the Beach version, you can deal spectacularly high amounts of damage with Roach as a sub, and she's often included in these types of farming teams because one combo can just obliterate basically any spawn. Furthermore, she has at least some utility, which, again, most of the Dragonbound Dragoncaller cards may not necessarily have when they have these heavily skewed awakenings. And then I believe lastly for the 7-star cards is Valyria. So Valyria is incredible because they are the only card in the game with 6 skill boosts. Now, this is definitely luxurious. They also have real stats, which is a big difference compared to the next best skill boost option, which is really the farmable Whale Door. Because with the farmable Whale Door, you do have 5, not 6, but you have, I believe, 700 less weighted stats. That is a gigantic dip by comparison. Valyria actually brings bulk to the table, which is important. But the thing is, how important is that one skill boost? Like, if you are planning to trade for Valyria, it may not necessarily be the best idea unless you're just swimming in so much fodder. But with that being said, it can make or break certain compositions. With that extra skill boost, you can bring other types of inherits or other types of subs and thus counter various mechanics. It may be what you need. Furthermore, the bulk definitely makes a big difference when you are using the leader swap abilities for things like, saying, Ganesha or Saline Arena 5. You are able to basically have the bulk from the Valyrias themselves, and you can still swap the desired leaders in at some point. She is incredibly powerful, but again, I honestly feel it's very luxurious. I don't have a Valyria. It probably would have helped, of course, but you can definitely get by. It is mostly for players who are wanting to truly optimize or maximize their experience in playing through certain content because they can unlock compositions that would not be available to the average person. In terms of their evolve form, it's really not something you should be looking at. Yes, they have lots of team health, but the thing is, you're basically giving up the only 6 skill boost card in the entire game, which, again, might be the amount of value you need to bring for a dungeon. And this form here, the Rainbow Leader aspect does have a high multiplier, but there's no effective health. They don't have any health or defensive multipliers, they just have excessive RCV. Maybe one can argue with the team health, but it may not necessarily be enough, and in all honesty, you're giving up the skill boost form. So now we transition into the 6-star cards, and there's only one new 6-star card in the form of Levin, and their active skill reduces all damage taken by 50% for 1 turn, and then 2 times burst for wood and dark cards. This is on an 8-turn cooldown, and either aspect is not necessarily super amazing, but the fact that they're combined together on a reasonably short cooldown makes it a reasonable active skill, because you are going to at least find some usage for this, because of the 2 useful components, one of them will probably be helping you out. Unfortunately, they mirror Knees, which is another 6-star card, in the sense that they have incredibly bloated weighted stats, 1638, higher than the 7-star cards, but they have very few awakenings, and their awakenings are not quite where we want them to be. They can form a 7x6 leader, but it may not necessarily be what you desire overall. So the main points are they do have natural L, which can help you unlock stuff. Their active skill may not necessarily go to waste, but I feel that it's a little hard to justify using them as a card in general. They do have huge amounts of RCV, but we can use something like Air if we want to have healing solutions, and Air comes with more balanced stats, much more awakenings, and also a useful active skill. Furthermore, they only have 1,173 health when level 110, which is almost non-existent. Next is Weld, and Weld's main purpose is to be converted into a weapon assist, because their weapon assist gives you a TPA, a bit of extra bonus damage, fire damage reduction, and attack, just flat attack. Because their active skill is actually quite helpful, especially for things like Beach Barbara and Julie teams. They produce the board changer you want to have in order to counteract resolve spawns. The delay may or may not necessarily be helpful, but it's just nice to have included. The extra TPA can make a high damaging card do even more damage. For example, inheriting Weld onto Sheet gives her even more explosive damage output, or inheriting Weld onto any card that has a short cooldown for your Beach Barbara and Julie teams can be definitely useful. So again, it is a situational inherit, but a strong inherit for those respective teams. One other thing I want to point out is that the fire resist aspect of the weapon assist can help you if you are cheesing through content with Kiri, because it does add an extra layer of damage reduction, so it might help ease team building compositions because you already come with a natural fire resist awakening. And one thing I want to mention about Mira is that they do actually have very high RCV with RCV latents. They can solve all healing problems, but again, they may not bring enough, I feel, overall. Next is Knees, so you can kind of see the similarities here with very few awakenings. Knees provides, instead of huge RCV, they have very little, they just have gigantic amounts of health. So it can solve your tanking issues. If you need to have a certain amount of health to overcome various thresholds for preemptives, Knees can definitely be that girl. Unfortunately, she does not come with many awakenings, she cannot become naturally bind immune, and her active skill is still useful, but the fact that she can be bound can reduce the viability of that clericing role, so to speak. You do heal 50% of your maximum health and 5 turns of Woken Bind recovery, and then Fire to Dark, Water to Wood, so if those are the types of actives or orbs you actually require for your team, Knees can be a useful card to bring, but again, just be aware that she comes with little in the way of awakenings and lopsided but high stats. Next is TARDIS, and TARDIS used to be the king of one-turn active skills because his competition was Gunma and Super Gunma when? Never, apparently. Either way, TARDIS is still a valuable card, but the main issue is he has been overthrown or replaced by stronger options, most notably through Aerith and Lutina, who are much stronger one-turn active skill cards with better awakenings and better weighted stats. Regardless, TARDIS is active, provides you with 1 second of bonus orb movement time, which is actually quite helpful. You can override debuffs. So what you tend to do is you inherit something on top of TARDIS, use it when necessary, and then time buff yourself to overcome those debuffs. Can definitely be helpful. It's kind of a free thing included for the one-turn active skill anyways. Unfortunately, what really holds him back is the fact that his awakenings are not that strong. There is no skill boost, so he doesn't help you charge up other active skills. The TPAs may or may not be needed. The team RCV can possibly help you out with some healing aspects, but it may or may not be enough. depending on what you need to bring for your team. TARDIS himself also comes with very low RCV, so that may or may not be a problem. But again, the main issue is stronger one-turn active skills have exist. But the main idea of one-turn active skills is that you can inherit something easily over top. You can even utilize the Kuroyuri loop. And this is, again, the strongest option for wood-based teams. So if you are desiring these types of systems, you can use TARDIS to be that base for those cards. But again, Lutina and Aerith exist, and they are stronger overall. Lee used to be an incredible card, highly desirable because the leader swap mechanic is quite powerful. Unfortunately, it's becoming a little less amazing just because we don't have the greatest 7x6 leaders to swap into, because most leaders nowadays come with strong enough leader skills that they don't need the bigger board to truly succeed. So basically dedicating one entire active skill slot for a leader swap becomes less desirable overall. It can still be used for sure. It's the only way to access saline swapping for like rank experience or Ganesha if you want to get excessive amounts of money, but it's just less important compared to what it used to be, and they're really just an inherit, and they don't provide any awakenings because it is not a weapon assist, which is just truly unfortunate. Next is Enra, and Enra also used to be incredibly strong, but the problem is she is just really a 777 combo card, does not bring too much else to the table. She only has one skill boost. Her super awakenings are quite powerful. You can have the L unlock, you can have Cloud, you can have Attack While Above, but the thing is, you probably want to use her on combo-based teams, and her active skill doesn't quite help combo-based teams because you probably overflow the board with fire orbs, which makes it harder to combo through. And with all those fire orbs, she doesn't have a VDP to take advantage of it either, so it doesn't have quite the best synergy there. Now, if you want to try and inherit over top of Enra, that could be problematic because 9 turns, she only brings one skill boost, might be harder to get something over top. Still a strong damage stick, but again, we have many more options for 777 combo cards that she just completely lost her unique niche value. And as a leader, she's basically like a Yogg style leader skill with a significantly lower multiplier, so there is no real need to do so. Next is Distal, and Distal has, at least upon release, or his release, a strong active skill, but time has not been kind. Like, 75% damage reduction for 3 turns, 2 times damage boost for Dragon Devil types. It sounds nice on paper when those active skills were useful. Nowadays, teams tend to have more than enough effective health to actually survive those troublesome mechanics when you needed the shields to do so. So if you can do so naturally, why would you want to bring an active skill? Furthermore, Distal is 20 turns. He's not a weapon assist. You probably don't want to run him as a sub, so it's just hard to truly justify where we could use him. The active is still strong, but I have Distal, and I haven't used him for well over a year. It was for some sort of, I forgot what it was, but it was for Riku during a No Awakening challenge dungeon. Like, it gave me a bit of it gave me the damage reduction and the little burst. It just happened to work out, but it's not something I would recommend, at least nowadays. Next is Alpha, and Alpha changes the whole board to fire, wood, and hard orbs, and then +1 combo for 2 turns. So this is basically like Verdandy's active skill. Same board changer, but instead of 9, it's 13 turns because you get +1 combo for 2 turns. And +1 combo may or may not be enough, but the thing is, if you want to have more combos, you're probably going to want to bring a +2 combo count active skill to guarantee you get enough. Like, a tri-elemental board may not have the orb distribution you want for your VDP and follow-up attack or super follow-up attack, may or may not, but the one combo count may not push you there at the same time. So using something that gives +2 combo count is probably going to be more desirable. So I just feel it's a lengthy cooldown for something you may not necessarily be able to take full advantage of. Furthermore, it's hard to justify using them as a sub. They have so many L awakenings which can do damage, but no real amazing place to use them. I guess you could use them on Medu teams, but Medu, while reasonably strong, is not the greatest thing in the world at this point in time. So Alpha just fails to have a good home to utilize them on, and it's just a little awkward overall. On the flip side, Omega is incredibly powerful. They have a gemstone style active skill, but it scales from 7 combos. So the formula for this is 1 plus 0.3x, where x is the number of 7 combos. So if you have 8 7 combos on your team, you'd have 3.4 times attack. That could be the most damage boost you can provide for your team based on your team composition. So it can be the one you want to utilize. For the most part, Carrot tends to be the most popular one because it's based off skill boosts, which are usually universally available for the most part. Now, if Gung-Ho had stopped there, Omega would have been still strong, but they gave him triple co-op boost awakenings, so they actually have monstrously high weighted stats in co-op. Unfortunately, their super awakenings are kind of a bad joke. You can't use co-op boost in co-op. Well, so you can't use co-op boost in solo mode, which is the only place super awakenings actually take effect. Kind of a weird thing, but hey, if you need a great stat stick in co-op who does provide massive amounts of RCV because of the inflated stats, Omega could be your dragon. Next is Leto. I can't find a use for them. For the first time they came around, I still can't find a use for them now. They give 3 turns of Awoken Bind Clearing, changing fire, jam, or poison orbs to dark, remove lock stats and orbs. They do a bunch of different things, but none of them are actually that powerful. I would not find a real use for this anywhere. Like, yes, it's a unique active skill, but it's not going to be like your second or third best option. There are just better things at what they're trying to do a little bit of, and I just don't think they're a card that works out. The team RCVs are weaker than enhanced heal orbs. It's just, no. Not really. Next is Rathios. So Rathios' main application is to become a weapon assist because they provide light and fire rows. So light and fire rows can help out Tifa teams because they utilize the 7x6 board. They like to match blob things together. Having a bit of extra damage might be helpful. Having the time extent may or may not be helpful. Another thing that I've seen them being utilized for, even for myself, is for when ranking dungeons have inflated the value of rows, like the style points you gain from rows has been increased, and being able to inherit both light and fire might be it's one of the few options to inherit 2 different colors of row awakenings for style points. But other than those applications, I don't find it's that amazing. The active skill does a bit of several things, a bit of damage reduction for 3 turns, then changing leftmost column to light, rightmost to fire, might be what you need, might not be, but again, it's kind of a middling to poor card. Next is NumberSix, who actually received a sizable upgrade, not for NumberSix himself, but because they gain a brand new evolution. But I'm going to look at each of them individually because they are dramatically different. So NumberSix in their base form has Triple God Killer, and that's basically what you need to know. They do 27 times damage to gods. They just do spectacular amounts. They can gain an L or attack while below or tape resist. All of those can definitely be useful under the right circumstances. For myself, I've utilized the L for ranking dungeons because when I'm one comboing with Zeus first, I might as well make that L for some stylish style points. It may not necessarily be needed, but hey, it's a little bit of extra utility. They do come with double skill bind resist, but the thing is, they don't come with any skill boost, so it can be problematic to charge up actives in time. But with that being said, they do have a 5-turn base cooldown, which means they can easily inherit a card of your choice to take along into the dungeon. But remember, they're basically just a god-killing machine, which is going to be the trend for many of these 5-star cards. So, NumberSix's brand new evolution requires you to farm Dragonbound Dragoncaller event, which I should be doing as well, and you should too. But with this evolution, they are dramatically changed, and is one of the reasons why you should ideally pick up at least 2, not 6 NumberSixes, because you then can have both forms. So, in their new form, their active skill gives you 4 turns of 2 times RCV, which could be cool. They enhance all fire orbs and then reduce unable to match orb effects by 5 turns. That is the whole point of this active skill. They prevent you... Imagine you're playing against Evolved Gaia where they prevent you from matching fire or water or wood. If you're using those types of colors, you're going to be screwed. But with Altura's active skill, you can completely negate it. And that can be invaluable. It can allow you to overcome challenging content. For Altarina 3, this type of active skill is invaluable because it does counteract certain lethal mechanics that you really can't address otherwise. You just need this counter. And I don't like the direction Gung-Ho is going with these things. They introduce problematic and dangerous mechanics that forces players to think of ways to overcome it, and then a little later, they introduce a card that has a direct counter. It's kind of like the whole Fujin scenario all over again. And if it gets to the point where Gung-Ho prints out a few more of these cards, we're going to start seeing this mechanic in every single dungeon that you can't run a dungeon without actually having this type of active skill. Like, that is frustrating and problematic in my opinion, but that I feel is going to be the case possibly in a year's time frame if they want to keep going down the introduce problem, introduce direct solution counter. But with that being said, this is the easiest way to acquire this type of active skill. It's not readily available. We may or may not necessarily need it, but it is something you should try and pick up if you actually have them. Outside of that, their leader skill can be cool in theory. Like, they do have 4 times health and 324 times attack when all cards are Dragonbound Dragoncaller cards. But unless you have things like Ideals or Levins, you may have issues with RCV and healing, so that can be a little problematic. In terms of their awakenings, they actually have a nice diverse array. They have they can have 7 combo super awakening, but they can have cloud and tape to cover out various mechanics. They have modest damage against gods, a reasonable card all around, but again, you might just end up inheriting them for that active skill. Next is Kiri, and Kiri's is arguably the best cheese style leader, and the main reason for that is because her leader skill provides 75% damage reduction with a single Kiri against fire type cards. And the problem with cheese type leaders was that you had to make sure you're fighting only that color type of spawn. Now, we did have options through the Puppeteers, but that was a monster point sink that really is costly for the average player. But Kiri combines all of that in one. You have the leader skill that vastly reduces damage against a certain color, and you also have the ability to naturally change the monster spawn into fire. So therefore you unlock your cheesing potential, assuming you either face a fire spawn right away or have enough skill boost to get that 16 turn active charged up in time. If you are able to do so, you basically just use gravities and then true gravities to kill a spawn. It may or may not be the most fun or exciting experience in the game, but it can work for quite a bit of content. Unfortunately, newer and newer dungeons are basically hard cracking down on cheese type teams. They either can introduce lots of void spawns, so your gravities don't actually work against the void card, and your multipliers are not high enough to necessarily pierce through in most cases, or they just introduce bosses that change their attributes at random, and then they will suddenly change colors and then execute you. That's going to be the way of the future, but Kiri can still cheese their way through the vast majority of content in the game. It is slow, but it can be safe, but it may or may not necessarily be your type of tea. With that being said, she is still a triple dragon killer card, so kind of like the Chevelle NumberSix alternative for dragons. Next is Kalia, which is Julia with a K. She's a disaster. She's still a disaster. I can't really foresee much value in her whatsoever. You do change columns to water and dark, but that's kind of it. Is that necessary? Probably not. Let's move on. Next is Chevelle, and Chevelle is a great card. I rolled so many Chevelles the first time Dragonbound Dragoncaller came around. I've been scarred for life. Either way, they are a triple devil killer card with 2 skill boosts and a reasonably fast charging active skill. Furthermore, they can gain Cloud or L Super Awakening. So again, kind of like NumberSix, I use Chevelle in my ranking dungeon teams. With that L, get some sweet style points, kill devils, profit all around. Again, highly specialized card, great at doing what she does, but we do have other devil killing options. Mito does exist. Mito does have a shorter base cooldown, and Mito also has higher devil killing potential when using devil kill latents. But with that being said, Chevelle can gain other latents. They could gain dragon, for instance, and now they kill dragons and devil type spawns when they're together. Can be something cool overall. With that being said, again, you're just good at killing devils. Pralinate is kind of like NumberSix and Chevelle smushed together. They can kill devils or gods with relative ease, depending on which super awakening you pursue. And if they're a devil god type spawn, woof, they don't exist. With that being said, I feel that she's a bit weaker because she is light from the context of a ranking dungeon point of view. I do have Pralinate, I have Chevelle, I have NumberSix. They're all invested into, and I find myself not using her as often because she's the same color as Zeus Verse. In ranking dungeons, you want to be able to, when using Zeus Verse teams, you want to have all colors covered so you can match any color to kill a floor. It greatly improves your consistency and clear times because you can just pick various colors and you can sweep the floor. Since Pralinate is going to kill your devils and gods, she's already light, you're kind of double dipping. Zeus Verse can kill lots of these spawns already by himself, and it's not really helping out overall. Like, it can save sub-slots if that's important, but again, you may not have enough light orbs overall if you're always relying on the same color to kill various floors. It's a small nitpick, but still an incredibly strong card because of the massive killing potential she brings to the table. And then lastly, thank goodness, is Vigo. Vigo has the ability to reduce all enemies' defense to 0 for 1 turn, and then change hearts and poisons into water orbs. It can be useful if you need to break defenses. There are other defense break options available, but they're not coming out as often, I feel, to a certain extent, but it is still a very niche situation when to use them. The only reason why they're not absolutely terrible is because they can have double physical or double healer killer, which are not the most common killers to have as doubles. It gives them a little bit of value. If there's a physical and healer type spawn, your damage is as good as Chevelle or NumberSix, which is nice, but again, pretty situational overall. Maybe use him every now and then for various things, but I haven't found much use for him at this point in time. So, in conclusion, the Dragonbound Dragoncaller event is an exciting event because these 5-star cards are definitely worth having, especially if you've never rolled this beforehand. If you have never rolled beforehand, I strongly encourage you to do so at least a few times to try and pick up various 5-star cards. With that being said, if you're more of a veteran or older player, such as myself, you may not have much value from this machine because you don't want to acquire your 6th NumberSix. So, let me know what you think about this event in the comments below, as well as what you hope to roll in overall. Hopefully you'll have a fantastic day. I wish you all the best of luck in your own pad adventures, and happy puzzling.